In the world of software development, efficiency is key. And nothing says efficiency like the power-packed features of JetBrains IDEs. Today, I'm diving deep into my top 3 favorite IDE features that transform the way I code. Features that not only boost my productivity, but also enhance my coding experience. These IDE tips and tricks have been game changers for me, and I'll show you what they are, how I use them to maximize my productivity, and what to watch out for so you can get the most out of your IDE. And if you stick around to the end, I'll show you a brand new promising candidate that didn't quite make the cut to the top 3. Welcome to Frankly Developing. I'm your host Frank, and let's get started with the first feature, which is navigation. It's super important to find your way around the code. And yes, I'm talking about the simple thing like usage search here, but did you know that it has actually 4 different levels, each of which makes you more efficient in its own way? Let's start with the first level, which is quite simply the number of usages. So at a glance, you can see how often a type or method is used in your code base. Here's one from a real project of mine. That's telling you a lot right there. Do you want to change a type like this? Well, maybe, but from these numbers alone, it's clear that this will need quite some preparation. Note how the IDE is giving you separate numbers for the simple reference to the type, but also for its inheritors and its extension methods, and even APIs that expose the type. Most of the time, though, it'll be more like this, which gets us to the second level of navigation. If you have a single usage, you can just control-click and then jump directly to the usage site. No stuff between, no dialogues, no pop-ups. It goes directly there, and you can go back again to the declaration site. So this gives you really fast navigation back and forth between declaration and usage. Now on the third level, you get this, if you control-click for multiple usages, a list of these usages. And it's in line right where you are. You can see these different locations. You have the line numbers, the files, so you get a rough idea of where this is being used in the code base. You can't get a lot of context information yet, but it's a quick overview kind of thing. On the fourth level is when you have more of these, like 20, 30, and you realize that I have to check, for example, each of them for a refactoring, or I want to go through each of them systematically for some reason. Then it's really hard if you have these inline things, like which one was I at? Was the 3rd or the 5th? And then instead, you can click on this button on the right-hand side and open a separate window, separate view, where you have all of these in the tree view. You can group them by your projects and your namespace and so on, and then go through them systematically one by one. It's like a 4th level of a usage search where you have to really go through each of them and make sure you don't miss one and watch each of them. You can also notice that on the right hand side there is like more context information available as well, where you can look at the few lines of code above and below, which makes it really helpful to understand like what kind of usage you're looking at here. And finally, you may have noticed this other little icon there, which says find it in it or show it in a diagram. And it's one of those features that I really don't like at all. It's like I'm not using it. This is the kind of diagram you get, which is okay-ish. If I use it on like a real world project with the bigger numbers, it quickly starts to be completely useless, and you can spend like time looking around this. But again, I never found this really particularly useful. But maybe you like to use this, then let me know in the comments below what you get out of this. Next up, we have autocompletion. And autocompletion, normally you would think of things like this. Just type something, it autocompletes the other options you have available. And then there's other methods on this. That's one way to use it, which is obvious and most people know. But there's like 2 distinctions between what you type and what the IDE is doing in terms of proposing. For example, if I extract this into a variable, here's a proposal, like do you want to use this or that? It's also kind of a completion that I really like to use a lot. Another thing is let's inline this again. So another thing is that you know that, for example, you can find these methods when they're usually camel cased or Pascal cased by just typing these individual letters. So this gives me two coordinates as well, which is quite nice if you have something like below the argument out of range exception. New argument out of range. Oh wait, there it is already. And you can also use the substrings like an arg range exception. It's pretty fast to get to the right type. You don't need to type a lot of this stuff out at all, and it helps you a lot to be able to use this efficiently. There's one downside to this feature, however, that you have to be aware of. All the stuff it can autocomplete for you, just as well as it's a downside for the navigation and the user searches, based on what the IDE has access to. So if you split up your code base across multiple repositories, you don't have the thing in your IDE solution, stuff like that, then the IDE does not know about it and you're not finding it, you can't autocomplete it. So that is one of the limitations where you just have to work around and be aware of in that case. Next up, we have quick fixes. And they can range in terms of their importance. So you have some things that are underlined, like here. It says you can declare it in inner scope. All this int here could be replaced by a var. And then there's the yellow ones that are more like a warning. Oh, be careful, this could be null, and you maybe don't want to give that into the parse method. Like each of those, you have this alt enter hotkey that allow you to react to it. And you can choose basically, do you want to coalesce it with a fallback value, throw an exception, also press it with a nullability one, which I wouldn't recommend. Just hitting enter on that, you get like, oh, that's it. And you do it again here. And these warnings are gone. Oh, what was this? Oh yeah, you can use var in this and this. You can actually do this on a bigger scale even. So if you open this, you could do it everywhere in the method, in the class, in the entire file, or even in your entire solution. It's just do it everywhere in the file. Wow, that is it. A lot faster. Really good in terms of your code health. You do small improvements like this all over the place, and all you really need to do is press Alt and Enter to get this kind of result, which is a really great tool also for learning, because if new features are added to your language, well, the IDE supports it and shows you how to use these things better. Here's one that you also have to be careful about, that these things, well, they can go in circles. So for example, you can convert a switch to an if statement, and well, doesn't look that good, so maybe it's suggesting it, oh yeah, I can return that again back to a switch statement here, and oh, back to an if statement. Well, that goes in circles. So in those cases, you basically have to learn where this is a kind of circular back and forth. And sometimes you also want to reconfigure these hints in a different kind of way. Like this, you can basically configure the severity to show it, like even if you wanted to, like an error. It's like, oh, I never want to see this in my code. And it takes some time to set up, but it's kind of worthy to do that. Particularly if you have like a static analysis tool, like SonarQube or something running in the background, you might want to flag these things as errors. For example, here on the usings that are unused, I flag them as errors because I know that Sonar will reject this on a pull request anyways. So might as well use this in the IDE to display it. Another thing that you can notice is that, for example, if you convert this to a switch expression, sometimes it's not really showing anything. You can still press Alt Enter, like there's nothing underlined here, but there's also the variation to just modify a code and use the expression body in this case. Just shorter and shorter code, easier to read all the way. So this will do a lot of great work for you and improve your code base. So one of the features that I use hundreds of times a day. Here's a bonus feature I promised you that was just introduced in the 2024.1 versions. Notice how these top lines stick despite scrolling around? These are called sticky lines. I found these sticky lines super helpful in knowing the context you're working in, because you always have like this class and the method you're in, and it's not going to go out of scope and out of view basically, which is really helpful, at least I find it helpful. There's only the problem that this is just a brand new feature, so it's not really like the same line in your IDE. So for example, you can't jump to direct usages like the navigation feature we talked about. You can't use like these quick fix things and click on them immediately. It's always just a line that is visually there, and the only thing you can do is click on it to jump your editor back to that, which is a bit limited still, but yeah, I guess they're getting there. So these have been my 3 main features that I use every single day in my IDE a lot of times. Navigating around the code is like a core skill that you need to work with and improve on. Auto-completion and really using it efficiently creates so much code with new features that use AI to generate even more completionist. This is just getting more and more important. And the quick fixes are just brilliant to get rid of all these tiny things you have to think about and just improve your code step by step by step. Very tiny actions, very fast. Just set it up initially, configure it to do the right thing in some cases where it has 2 options or 3 or goes circular, and you're really good to go. I hope you enjoyed these and can apply a lot of them in your own work as well. Thank you for watching and have fun developing.